We have Mac in California. Thanks for waiting. You're on with Dave and Matt.
Hey, David, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. How can we help?
Well, I just wanted to discuss, I thought a good topic perhaps for the two of you would be the necessity of religion and how that relates to God or the concept of God.
So what do you mean by the necessity of religion? Are we talking about strict philosophical, and actually we couldn't be. So I don't know what you mean by necessity of religion.
Well, I would say that it's almost that human beings just have a natural inclination towards, trying to understand their reality, and religion is the attempt to do that. So,
sure, but that's not, so you do realize that not everybody comes up with a God notion when they're trying to explain things, right? Some people actually don't have a God concept like the Baraha, and other people, instead of going to the supernatural, look for naturalistic scientific explanations for how things are the way they are. So I don't see that religion is necessary. Can you clarify? Because I'd love to get Dave to chime in here, but when you say the necessity of religion, it seems like you're just saying, hey, people look at the world and they have questions, and many of them come up with these sort of religious notions to try to answer those questions. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Is that all you're saying?
Do you?
No, I would say, religion
Are you
overarching than that, and that it actually encompasses, worldview more than just, a system of organized thought that people have devised. And I guess, let me put it broadly, I'd say that, most of, the foundation of what our society is built on has come through religion, and that, our very concepts of morality are grounded in that, whether you want to accept them as objective or subjective,
except that they're not.
Similar.
My view of morality isn't grounded in Christianity or religion at all.
Well, I can understand you thinking that, but I would say that your whole psychology, is based on the culture that you were raised in. That culture.
No, sir. I've rejected the religion of the culture in which I was raised. I reject many of its precepts. The only thing I kept from the religion I was raised with were the things that were secularly justified, like you shouldn't murder people. But if you listed like the 10 Commandments, I don't have any God, let alone one before Yahweh. I have no objection to making graven images. I have no objection to not honoring a mother or father. I have no objection to taking the Lord's name in vain. I'm against lying, but not all lying, because I think that there are occasions where lying is justified. I'm against murder, but I'm not against coveting. That's capitalism. That's what built the United States, coveting what the Joneses have. So I'm okay with homosexuality and LGBTQIA issues and marriage equality and all sorts of things that I was against when I was a Christian that many other Christians are against. So how could you say that when I've done the work, and this is me being a little outraged right now, Mac, so bear with me, because what I see from believers in religion is they, without thought and without evidence, accept a prepackaged, here's the rules by which you must follow. And other people like myself have spent years studying and developing secular ethics, which are superior. And yet you just want to say, well, you're just a product of your culture. My morality is in many ways the exact opposite of the culture you're pointing to. So why would it get credit? God's not okay with gay people.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Can I say something, Matt?
Say as much as you like.
Yes. Yeah, so I think there is a larger misconception that morality is somehow the sole provenance of religion, and that's just patently false. And having been a minister for 10 years, I mean, I can tell you, I've met some of the meanest people in my life in a church. They were mean to their core. They treated others horribly. They may have had a certain set of beliefs. They may have believed in the 10 Commandments and not killed someone, but at their core, they were miserable people. And we know some of the horrible things that have been done in the name of God throughout the ages. So the notion that somehow morality can exist apart from religion is false, and I reject that. And Matt, I agree with
so Mac, help us out here.
Okay.
Because I don't want to misrepresent you, and I don't want to just walk all over you. But when you say the necessity of religion, I'm still confused, but I will let you move on or clarify as you see fit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would clarify that by saying, first of all, I'm not here to promote any particular religion, especially Old Testament morality. I think, that's a dead horse at this point. But I would say that it's kind of, I enjoyed your discussion with Jordan Peterson, and I would actually take his viewpoint that, foundational to our Western society are these conceptions of morality that's not just based on Christianity per se, but,
Like what?
Down through all of history.
Like what?
For me, okay, well, I would say, the concept of love, the concept of compassion, the concept of...
Hang on. Love and compassion aren't matters of law at all and are not necessarily principles of any moral system. And love and compassion aren't in any way the attributes of a single religion. They are part and parcel of who we are as human beings.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. In fact, I accept a lot of... I'm very eclectic in my, take on religion. I like Buddhist principles. Taoism, I think, is a good philosophy in many ways. Christ, I think, was a very noble figure that brought us a lot of truth, into the world. And I think...
Like what?
Underestimate...
Like what? Now, let's assume for a second that Jesus existed and we have an accurate reporting of what he said or did. What important thing did Jesus enlighten us about?
Well, I wouldn't try to argue that the concept of forgiveness didn't exist before Christ, but he's the one that brought that into the forefront as,
That is utter nonsense.
Towards
the notion of forgiveness is not only not specifically Christian, but doesn't originate there. So, I mean, you can't say, oh, what did Jesus enlighten us about? Did he enlighten us about figs when he was cursing the fig tree? I want to know what Jesus brought to the world
per se
that is good and substantive and true.
Well, that, I would argue that he changed the world in a sense. We went from, much more barbaric, warlike cultures to societies, that turned towards the concept that he promoted, whether you like the institutions that it arose from or not. And let's not get, we can get into historical discussions.
But that matters. So once again, I'm trying to figure out what you think that Jesus brought into the world. And it seems like you think Jesus showed up and made everything better, except that that's not what the evidence points to in the slightest.
No. Okay. Let me put it this way. I'd say that Jesus brought the same thing into the world that Krishna did, that the Buddha did, that Gandhi did, that Martin Luther King did, that all the great men that have changed the world in a positive way had this, some notion, the concept of God that guided them. Now, that's what I would call, religious necessity. So I think that it's...
So let me, can I ask, can I ask the caller a question, Matt?
Jump on it.
So speaking of the concept of God, let's talk about that. So do you mean the God who said he delighted in bashing the heads of babies against rocks in Psalms? Or what about the God who drowned innocent people, including children, in the mythology of the flood? I mean, where is morality in that? Where is an example of goodness in that? Because that doesn't look like goodness to me. The God that I just mentioned, and I could tell other stories, is a pretty immoral character, if not amoral at times. If you take that character as being someone, as being a real being, and I don't think you want to do that.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not here to try to support Old Testament morality or even the historicity of all things, in the Old Testament. I'm not here to promote Christianity. I'm here to talk about the necessity of religion as the Latin root for that is to rebind or reconnect. And to me, my concept of God, might lay more in terms of a God of Spinoza, a God of Einstein, that, is part of the entire cosmos. And I know it gets kind of nebulous and not not very explanatory when you start talking about God in that way. But, I wouldn't define God in any terms of any specific religion. I would say the concepts that have promoted, cultures and our very essence of our morality that we accept. That, secular humanism, I applaud you for a lot of the good that you want to do in the world. And, I think secular humanism has the potential to do a lot of good. But I think without that grounding that it got from religions,
No, sir. Stop suggesting that secular humanism got its grounding from religion. Secular humanism got its grounding by standing in opposition to religion after religion after religion. It is the opposite of that. It is the recognition that, as far as we can tell, we are stuck here with the need to fix and handle our problems ourselves. And so we need to come up with solutions, and we don't get to appeal to the supernatural. That means we don't get to appeal to the supernatural for assistance, and we don't get to appeal to it when we want to be bigots. I see no necessity of religion. I'd love for you to say one thing about religion that you think is specific to religion and necessary, because I haven't heard anything.
I would say the nature of the concept of love your neighbor as yourself, love.
Are you suggesting that I can't love someone if I'm not religious?
No, we can argue from evolution and say,
I don't need to argue from evolution. So you're not saying that religion is required for love. So we're back to what is religion? What is the one thing of religion that you're saying is necessary and true and good? Because you keep going back to love, which isn't tied to religion necessarily.
Well, no, I would say that it is. I mean, I think most people would.
I just literally asked you if you thought love was necessarily tied to religion.
No, well, I was saying you can argue that the concept of love and our desire for well-being of others, we can try to argue, through.
Do I need religion in order to love?
No, you don't need a specific religion.
Okay, then religion isn't relevant to love, right?
No.
Do I need a bowling ball if I want to go bowling?
That's a false dichotomy. I would say the concept of love.
Don't say it's a false dichotomy. I asked, do I need a bowling ball if I want to go bowling?
I mean, okay, no. Yes, you need a bowling ball.
Yes, because the way we define bowling, the act of doing that, a bowling ball is a necessary component of that. Do I need religion to love someone? You've said no, which means religion is not a required component of what it means to love.
Okay, well, let me put it this way, because maybe this will give you an idea of more of the overarching idea of what I'm talking about. I would agree with Jordan Peterson in that the basis, the foundational reality that our, Western society, at least, is built on is, religion is foundational to that. And that if we sweep all of that away, that I really do think we would have anarchy. I don't think so.
I am not remotely interested in your bullshit speculations any more than I was with Jordan's bullshit speculations while I sat there and he was making them. To suggest that the world would crumble without religion is just fear-mongering bullshit that has no basis in fact.
I'm not saying without religion, but the concepts and
you are literally saying religion is necessary, and you are desperately trying to find the one thing you can point to show that it's necessary. And when you come up with examples and I show how they're not necessary, they don't make religion necessary, you just keep moving on to the next thing. And now you've moved on to Jordan. I'm going to agree with the Jordan Peterson here about what the foundations of our culture are. Well, this call wasn't about the foundations of culture. Our culture, irrespective of its foundations, is doing just fine. And none of that gets to the necessity of religion. So what is it that makes religion necessary?
Okay, let's think of it in terms of causality. I would say that the cause of the principles that our culture is built on have sprung from religion. And in that sense, now that we have these concepts of morality and
like what?
Or at least respecting your neighbor.
My morality is not tied to religion. My position on issues is not tied to any religion at all. If all you're saying is that we have positions because that we also had religions. So fucking what? That's not a necessary religion. That's just describing that people have done a lot of thinking about stuff and moved on. What am I missing, Dave?
Let me attack it from another.
Yeah. No, let's go back. I mean, I don't want to bring up slavery, but I mean, if we're talking about what a great bedrock of morality and righteousness that religion has brought to us, then what do you do with slavery? Or Matt, to go back to something you said earlier, what do you do with the genocide of people that we kicked out of this land, who were here before we? I mean, you're trying to make an argument about this foundation that never existed. And then if you want to make that argument, I just gave you a glaring example of slavery is one that, stands in opposition to everything you're saying. How do you explain that? And just so you know, people used religion to make arguments to support slavery, as did those who attacked it. I'm not getting it.
I just want to know what makes religion necessary, because I have yet in all of my years to have anyone come up with an example. The things they like to point to tend to be things about who we are as human beings, that we are communal, that we have family, that we have people we care about, we have people we love, we get together in groups, we benefit from working in groups. And that means that we have to create some rules about how that group's going to interact. And that means that we need to sit down and either say, oh, you can do this or you cannot do that because my invisible friend says so, or we can argue about what we should be allowed to do from a reasonable foundation. I choose the latter because it's better, but at no point has anything in my life required religion.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And perhaps the framing it as a necessity of religion was maybe a little bit too strong of a claim. But can we just transition quickly to
Sure.
why I wouldn't go so far as to be an atheist?
Well, you do realize that all an atheist is someone who's not convinced there's a God, right? So it's not like you have to go very far. You've actually gone in the wrong direction. You believe something that you may or may not have good reason for. But all I'm saying is I'm not convinced. But go ahead. What was the next point?
I think I really enjoy all the atheist theists back and forth. I think it's pretty fascinating, and honestly, I think because of the fact that you can't prove a not X, and therefore say X. And
you can though. If a proposition is falsifiable, that's essentially what that means, is that there is some way to show that it's false. So the statement you can't prove a negative just isn't true. You can prove many negatives.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that's an argument from incredulity if you do it either way. If I say that you can't prove that God does not exist.
You don't have to. That's not the requirement. The requirement is to prove that God exists. Whether or not we can prove that God doesn't exist is irrelevant.
You can say that I can't prove that God exists, therefore he doesn't. But both of those are arguments.
I'm not going to say that. I would just ask you: can you prove that God exists?
Okay, I know you don't like. I know you may not like this tack, but I'm going to go with a cumulative argument. And please don't associate this with any Christian apologists necessarily or anything like that. But I think it does make sense logically, just if you take, all the information that we have from science and everything else, including evolution, I would say that there's a good cumulative case argument that, based on causality, based on the complexity of life, based on consciousness, that there is some causal principle that goes beyond brute facts, at an infinite regress that can explain all of reality.
You just lost. You just lost. You watered down your God to the point where it is now nothing. Because when you say that something overcomes brute facts, now you are making appeals to something other than facts. And the only thing I care about are facts. So you've watered your God down to the point where it is now useless. And all you're really saying is that when I look around at the world, it makes more sense to me that a God is responsible for it than that there's some other explanation. And that makes your argument fallacious. And so if you're not going to present any reason to believe in a God, and you're just going to go with fallacies, and then you're just going to make assertions about the necessity of religion, I think we got to move on because there's only like 8 minutes left in the show.
Okay, well, let me I'll just end this and say that Nothing that I said was fallacious. And
No, sir. I just pointed out the fallacy that as soon as you claim that it goes beyond facts, you are no longer talking about something that is tied to reality.
I never said anything goes beyond facts. You know, I was saying causality.
Literally, there's people in chat quoting you about your brute fact statement. Are you saying that you didn't say that?
I'm saying that if you're trying to take ultimate reality back to
what is ultimate reality? I only know reality.
The entire cosmos,
that's reality, not ultimate reality. That's reality.
Okay, just reality. I'm saying that if you want to take reality back to some unknown, brute fact, self-causing physical laws that existed from eternity, that's just as much of a mystery as any concept of God. And
no. Saying we don't know is preferable to pretending that you do, and that's what you're doing. You are pretending you know when the right answer is we don't know.
Shit.
Fallibilist, and I'm also an agnostic. Ultimately, I don't think, but I'm saying that the cumulative evidence leans towards
that is not an argument.
Force.
I don't care if you use the word cumulative. Do you know how obnoxious it is to have somebody say, well, the cumulative assessment is that you haven't provided anything? I might as well just say the cumulative evidence is against you. Oh, the cumulative assessment of people who I've talked to this week are against you. You have not made an argument. You have not provided evidence. You have just prevented another way to shirk up. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the call.